All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Midcurve, where we talk about crypto and midcurve things, I guess. With me today, of course, my beautiful co-host, Andrew, and the brain behind Midcurve. And we also have today a special guest with us, Birdmon. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are. Tell us what you've done in this space.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I've been involved in the Solana NFT space since it started, essentially in 2021. At that time, it was still pre-Candy Machine, and mints were happening, like DJ Apes and SMBs minted, and then I kind of just I was still studying. This is, I guess, my first big intro into Web3. I was still studying computer science in Cape Town. In my mid-year holiday, I saw these NFTs and minted one, and then I decided to just make up total stupid concept just to have fun with it. I was curious about how the punks auto-generated the different characters. That seemed interesting to me. So that was my first curiosity that kind of pulled me in, and then kind of created this character, I guess, and started getting active on Twitter. And at that point, Metaplex was this auction house repo, super simple. You just can host your own auctions basically on a website. And then I created a Twitter, created a Discord, started auctioning off these NFTs, one of ones. And as time kind of went on, I noticed there's obviously a demand for NFTs. They were already pumping on ETH, and there was not a lot of stuff available on Sol. So I pushed with the help of a bunch of other people and whatever to get essentially a Candy Machine built out to mint 3,000 NFTs. And this project, without much expectation and without much planning or work, really, just 3 weeks of being on Twitter and Discord, basically minted. It's called Thugbirdz. It's one of the OG Thugbirdz collection. Solana NFT collections. And it just went crazy timing wise. The project got ecosystem wide, I guess, recognition, which was cool. And since then been traveling to most of the Solana hacker houses, not recently, but in 2022, and try to just meet as many people in the ecosystem as possible and kind of figure out what to do next. And then since last year, started a new company with some friends, and we launched an NFT at the end of last year, just as the bear was kind of starting to fade. And just working on that stuff now. So that's kind of my intro into the space.
As the bear was starting to die. Yeah.
Finally. Yeah. Congrats to us, by the way, for surviving the great bear market of Tuesday.
That nearly gave me a small heart attack.
Yeah. I mean, what's a bull market if not for having strokes?
I just have PTSD, dude. That's it.
Yeah. I love that intro from you, though, because I feel like sometimes when people launch these wildly successful projects, they get a really overinflated ego. But you're I put it together in 2 weeks and it worked. It was great. You have a really healthy approach to it, which I think is really cool.
I mean, yeah, dude, I think with a lot of the stuff that goes viral or whatever, it's mainly luck and timing, right? So to take credit, and beyond that, Thugbirdz' success really came from a great community that formed around the project, and that's what carries it still to this day. Yeah, I mean, truly, I would be, and in fact, in this space, your ego, you can't really play the ego game. There's always way bigger fish doing way bigger things. So better to kind of just know who you are and don't try to be too obnoxious about it, which is oftentimes a thing in the NFT community. So
right, shockingly hard.
I remember when Thugbirdz launched, and I was pretty early in Solana, not in building NFTs, but in just buying and minting NFTs when they were first coming out. So I minted a few SMBs, And then my buddy was texting me one day and he's like, "Oh, have you seen these birds? They're called Thugbirdz. It's so funny." He's like, you should mint a couple. So I minted a couple early, and then I sold way too early. Of course, just paper handed it like an idiot, like a mid curve. And that was a bummer. But yeah, it was cool. So let me ask you, you mentioned the community still carries the project to this day. How involved are you in the Thugbirdz community?
Yeah, so basically, like, I would say mid 2022, since I didn't really have like a vision for the project going into it, I kind of just made this thing up purely to learn like how to do the art and see if I can get it to a point to mint, and kind of just followed what came in front of me, but never had this like long arc of success planned, like how does this all make sense? Like why is this pixelated bird like $20,000 or something? Like, I don't know. I didn't plan for that. And so when the project really grew to that scale, like at its max, the market cap was like $70 million, which is like crazy, dude, for 3,000 NFTs. At a point, I still have like these articles and stuff saved. At a point, it was like a top 10 PFP across all chains by market cap. At that point, once it grew to that scale, there's obviously like this huge expectation that comes from the community that buys into a thing like that, which is different from the people who supported you from when you minted. They're like the cool, humble, like, shillers, like ground level, like awesome people in the community. They start up projects and coins and whatever. But then the people that buy for like 10, 20, 15, 30K, whatever, that's like a specific type of person who regards a lot of stuff obviously very seriously. And that community started, and my kind of ideas or direction for the project, those two versions grew apart. Like there was this insane pressure to do a token, like massive pressure, like do a token, bro, it's gonna rip, whatever. Fully tokenomics did everything, even minted the tokens, got up to the point, and then I just like last minute, I was like, I don't want to be involved with this, because it would kind of hurt this like OG like 3K PFP project. Like you want to keep that almost as simple and untouched as possible. A lot of projects in NFTs start focusing on like coins and more collections and stuff, and they want to grow everything, but that generally just like inflates the problem. And so, yeah, I mean, once we sufficiently thought about, like the future of the project in different ways, I gave over the IP of the project to a group of guys who formed like a DAO. I mean, the DAO was formed initially, like that was the Discord, was called ThugDAO the whole time, but it was never like an official DAO. So they had this like little bit of community structure and a group of like guys who are really passionate about the project. So I gave them the update authority, the royalty wallet, and at that time, like 200K of like the treasury, just paid over to them, and then lifted myself from any like operational or decision-making roles. I'm still a community member and still in touch and friends with a lot of those, but the Birds guys, and they have since achieved, I think, a thing which is pretty rare in crypto for a community to actually continue with a project once its original founding people aren't actively involved in it. So I think that's long-term really great for the project. I've got like a lot of stuff I still want to do in the Web3 space, and kind of if you set it up where you're super tied to one thing or one project, then it swallows you up, and it happens to a lot of founders and some of my friends in the space, and they feel kind of trapped. And I think like there's a world where obviously you can move on and just build more stuff if you have done other things in the space. So yeah.
That's a wild story to me. I mean, the whole thing's a wild story, but like that moment where it got so successful, that sounds like psychologically debilitating. That's and I'm kind of shocked by that decision to not launch the token. That seems like, I don't know, just at the peak of all that froth and all that mania and having all those voices in your ear. it's really interesting to me that you sort of had what I think is probably the right instinct to keep the thing like true to its roots or smaller or something. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about that. That's really, really interesting to me.
Yeah, there's often like difference, and there has to be a difference between what the people like and communities of things want right now and what's actually best for that community long term. Mm-hmm. And those are not often the same things, right? And you've seen, like, all I was seeing was NFT communities around me that start on a perfect kind of idea and then follow what everyone else around them is doing, which is like, do a token, do it like this, copy their tokenomics. So it all kind of just gets recreated. And then none of it lasted more than like 3 or 6 months. Some of it did. Like DeGods unrolled their dust into points and then went back or something. I don't know, like back and forth. It all seemed to me just like a kind of smoke and mirrors. Didn't really seem like even a great idea. Even some of the legit protocols and projects and stuff that are doing tokens on Solana are like, I question why. And I get why. It's like farm users, guys, get a token. Whoa. But what happens in the next bear when all these tokens go like all the way down again? And especially, DeFi is kind of different. But in NFTs, it's like there's not a really solid strategy or approach to doing a coin. It more often than not tends to be the reason that your community gets destroyed long term. And so for that decision, I was willing to bite the bullet and make an unpopular decision, which like will certainly, I think, is a asset to the project right now, that it doesn't have the liability of another token. Like, you've already got tokens, you've got NFTs. Like, you want to make more tokens and disguise them or whatever. Like, I mean, yeah, there's a way to do it, but at that time it was definitely a tough decision to make, but I think long term it was a good one.
So, like back then when things were just frothy and everyone was pushing to launch tokens and whatnot, are we seeing the same thing happening right now with token projects? Can you maybe talk about the landscape, the NFT landscape today?
Yeah, so it's kind of the same. All these things are cyclical in the same way, but there are new shifts in the NFT ecosystem, particularly the AMM style NFTs. Blur big on ETH, and obviously Tensor is big on Solana. That's kind of dominating a lot of the volumes, and what that has done is kind of sent NFTs. The original, I feel like, meta, I guess you could call it, that got me into NFTs was this like digital artifact or digital collectible thing. And that was like novel back in 2021 to just have that on Solana. But how things have evolved, that novelty has shifted onto Bitcoin with ordinals. So it's like, okay, the digital collectibles on the grandpa chain, and that's actually, I agree, it's cool to have them there, right? It's more provenance. Like, if that's your meta, go inscribe your super valuable art there. That shifts out of ETH and Sol collectibles. That whole value proposition shifts away, and then what remains essentially are these AMM dominated things, and yeah, like the marketplaces are point farming each other, and it's kind of, incentives are definitely a lot different than what they used to be. But you're also seeing, on the positive side, different innovations that are coming into the NFT space from the token standard level. Back in the day, we just used to have, when Thugbirdz was around, it was simple, just like one NFT kind of contract.
Hold on, I like how you said back in the day. I mean, like 2 years ago.
Right. Yeah. It feels like lifetimes ago, bro. Yeah. I've just been scarred by Discord notifications and Twitter notifications and whatever. But yeah, since back in those early medieval ages, the token standards have evolved a lot and have allowed for a lot more kind of versatile ideas to come into the NFT space. So it started, I think, with ERC 404, which started on ETH, and that idea got brought over to Solana and kind of shifted into Solana, and it's called this like hybrid NFT. It's like a kind of a combination between NFTs and fungible tokens like Jupiter style SPL tokens. So things like that are pretty interesting to see. There's even inscriptions on Solana, like some of the collections that are built on these token standards, like some of the SPL 404s. They're like DEX volume is insane. It's like 10x Mad Lads 24-hour volume. So I think that shift in like digital artifacts going into Bitcoin, Solana becoming this like super scalable chain where you can compress millions of NFTs and build all these creative ideas with these token extensions. NFTs are going to merge with DeFi more and more, and NFTs are going to kind of be financialized more and more, as they have been with AMM pools and stuff. And I think Solana will become the home of that kind of meta, amongst others as well. I mean, there's definitely a wide variety and diversity in the NFT ecosystem. An amazing one-of-one scene on Solana, which is growing super well. One-of-one artists that are creating crazy concepts. There's obviously DripHaus, which is quite a recent thing that's blown up on Solana, which is utilizing compressed NFTs, and it's like one of the most used dApps in all of crypto. So yeah, things have definitely shifted, but in many ways, things definitely repeat as well. Like same old ideas get reshuffled.
So I have so many questions about everything you just said. Can you explain DripHaus, and why would someone use DripHaus? Because, well, I'll let you explain it first, and then I'll ask why anyone would actually use it. Because to me, it seems like you're getting a lot of free NFTs that are not worth anything. Is that right?
That is kind of the initial confusion, and it is the same confusion that I had around NFTs themselves. It's like, okay. Wait, so I'm buying like this NFT and it's like, what, a JPEG, but I'm paying actual money for it, and I can right click, say like, what the fuck, who cares about this? And then that idea blows up, and then once you start participating, you start to kind of get it. Where DripHaus, where I kind of saw that idea being valuable, so early on in Thugbirdz, like after we minted, I would contact like cool one-of-one artists and pay them commission like a piece. Like we did Pinug and like many of the OG like artists, they would commission a piece, and we would airdrop non-compressed NFTs onto our holders, right? Just like an art airdrop. And dude, those things made people the happiest out of everything. Like receiving a cool piece of art was like way more awesome for people than like receiving like an airdrop of a token, you know. Even though people love tokens, you know, people love that, but the value of art, and like at that time specifically, like people were still into NFTs for the art, you know, seemingly. I first heard of DripHaus and subscribed to a channel and looked at what was going on. I immediately kind of understood that the whole of DripHaus is built on that free art airdrop idea and the power of that. And so essentially what it is, you have a whole bunch of creators. We are one channel, and you have users, and then users can subscribe to their favorite creators, and they essentially get airdrops. However, whenever the creator drops something, everyone in his community gets one. It's a tiered airdrop. So they've got like a rarity built in. You've got commons and rares and legendaries. And they've built this whole gamified ecosystem around it where people log in every day and like check if they get a legendary. And then they usually don't get it. And sometimes they get one and they get lucky. And then they've got droplets where, you know, users can reward creators, and in turn users can earn droplets. So they've got this whole like gamified ecosystem for users built around it. We have like 300K subscribers on our DripHaus channel, 300,000, which never made sense to me and still doesn't. Like, I know they're constantly anti-botting and, you know, like fighting off all these bots and stuff. And I think that's a super hard challenge to be fighting. And they've apparently got some of the best like anti-bot, whatever tech in crypto or whatever. It's a great distribution channel for content creators. And I think as time grows, their vision is to build it into this like, it's kind of like a Web3 Instagram type of thing where you as a creator are literally rewarded for people interacting with your content, and they can collect it, and you can build a whole bunch of different use cases on crypto rails around that kind of idea. So yeah, that's basically DripHaus.
So that's why we're friends, because I didn't know that. I didn't know any of that about DripHaus, and I wasn't gonna take the time to find out, but now I do. And that's actually that's a great idea. Like,
yeah, dude, the founder's a huge beast. Vibu, he's like,
yeah,
he's worked at like Google, I don't know, Meta. He was like,
he's had a few big startups. Yeah, he's had a few big ones that have been pretty successful. I was on another team before Jito, and I had a call with him for some stuff. But yeah, he's super cool. My second question was, you mentioned like the new meta, and you mentioned tokens and NFTs being transferable and all that. And we've had a call before where you've walked me through some of this. Can you maybe dig deeper into that and tell the people about what's going on Solana right now and the new meta?
Yeah, this is the financial advice section of the podcast.
yeah.
Spend money on
advice, yeah. But
for sure, not financial advice. Just this is
just be clear. Listen,
it's mid-curve.
It's mid-curve, absolutely.
Exactly.
This may be a mid-curve thing, but essentially the problem I described earlier, which was like users NFT communities, create their NFTs, and then they have to build this token on top of it and somehow integrate those two, and that usually inflates this like liquidity Ponzi, and eventually once that bursts, like the whole thing comes down. But what these token extensions allow on these hybrid NFTs, and there's a couple of great projects. Bozo.finance, that's a great one. Recently, this one, Birdmon, launched. And there's a whole bunch of them launching. But essentially what the concept is, it's like a hybrid between an NFT, as like a Thugbirdz was, and an SPL token. This is this hybrid token, SPL 404. And it's easy to explain it with like a concept. So if we had 1,000 Thugbirdz and we minted them,
you can share your screen if you want. It'd be easier to like explain and show.
Yeah, so I don't even own one of these. So I'm not like paid to shill or affiliated in this anyway, nor is this financial advice. But yeah, this was a free mint, and just to show you the statistics, like the floor price, 194 Sol, and yeah, they've got like a whole token going on. So essentially the concept is explained pretty well here. They've got 1,000 Bozo NFTs, and each of them holds 800,000 tokens. Like you can swap the
I can tell that this was made by Gigabrains too. Like some of the the worse it looks, the smarter it is.
Exactly. That is actually a big true thing in the NFT space. But yeah, like essentially the NFT can be swapped for these like fungible tokens, and you can bridge back and forth as many times as you want, and they work out pretty interesting like tokenomics around it, and are building a whole bunch of cool stuff. But what's interesting here is like the NFT, they started at 1,000, and people can put those NFTs into the bridge, and then they get allocated their tokens, and then they trade the tokens on Jupiter, right? And so over time, more and more people kind of redeem or escrow their NFT for the token. But at any time, you can swap it back. And here's where it gets pretty interesting. So you have the NFT's value and the dollar value of all the tokens that are, that you can get for that NFT. And there's usually a difference. And so that difference is constantly like an opportunity for the community to arbitrage and trade back and forth between these two kind of pool like ecosystems of, they're separate. Like the NFT liquidity is very separate from DeFi liquidity. So yeah, these projects leveraging smart tokenomics and integrating their token to the actual NFTs themselves and kind of collateralizing the NFT with other tokens. Seeing some pretty cool results, and I think it's definitely a meta on Solana that's going to grow, given that this idea came from the Ethereum world, and that was it was like a lot of excitement around that, but you can't actually build those types of use cases at scale like you can on Solana. On Solana, you can bridge back and forth like infinite times for free. And on Ethereum, after a couple of bridges, you're all out of coins. So yeah, it's like I feel like Solana is going to thrive on the things that are not possible on other chains, and so I think the NFT meta on Solana is going to definitely shift more towards this hybrid DeFi kind of thing over time. But yeah,
only possible on Solana. So when you do this though, and this is just for my own curiosity, does this add complexity from a regulatory standpoint when you're adding a token over just having, maybe just like a straight up NFT?
Probably. I know locally here in South Africa, like it really depends per country where the business is and where your users are and everything. But locally here, actually NFTs versus fungible tokens are legally considered separate things. So they look at like specifically like ERC 720 and like whatever else, and don't consider any NFT token standards as like a legal token. So that whole world, bro, I'm not the right guy to ask about that. Like definitely adding token adds some complexity to just your whole tokenomics and approaching the project. But I can't imagine how what if I was to mint 100,000 NFTs on Solana versus 100,000 fungible tokens, and how are those fundamentally different? I don't really know, but yeah, it definitely gets interesting when it comes to securities where it's like collateralized tokens with other tokens. But I think there's always like little legal loopholes that you can incorporate into your terms and conditions of your token project.
Not legal advice.
Yeah, definitely not.
I think in general, Midcurve, just remember it's not an advice podcast, period. And that's very important.
Yeah, I feel like exactly. Midcurves are the only people in life that try to give advice.
I love that.
That is a great quote. That should be on our Twitter. Advice is
kind of a Midcurve thing to do, This should be called left. If we're not giving it, if we're giving terrible advice, like left.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
That's so funny. I actually really like that quote. I think I'm going to use that on Twitter this week when we launch this episode.
Give me any metadata for royalties, bro. I'll be happy
exactly. Exactly. I want to ask one more question about this. Like, if you were to build like another project now using this meta that you just spoke about, how would you do it and what would you do? How would you use this?
That's an interesting concept. I mean, I feel like these initial projects are just like the Birdm0n is just kind of like a proof of concept, and they've built a whole bunch of cool tech around it too. Like they've built the bridge and everything. But if I was to personally build something in this space, I would probably it is essentially like a gamified thing. So I would probably create like a cool Discord game around it, where like the users are like playing something cool and interactive. Or if you have like a bit more budget, you can level it up into a fun interactive game that people can participate in on a daily basis and earn the tokens. I think tokens as just like a dirty token getting put in your wallet and like shows a dollar value there. It's kind of a weird feeling, but if it has got some cool use case, like a great use case, I don't know if you remember like DeGen coin flip.
I don't.
Do you remember that project?
Kind of. Was it like a betting? It was a betting game.
Dude, so yeah, it's like a betting game. So they did a mint with this. They minted these coins, and then they used that to fund a pool, and then the holders got a rev share with the devs. And then, you would bet like up to like 2 SOL, and then you'd go double or nothing on like a little betting thing. And that pumped, bro. Even in the peak bear, that's when it pumped even harder. You know, they say casinos do better in recession time. So people were flipping their 0.2 sol trying to double up. and and yeah, I think like some cool mechanic where it is engaging and kind of super fun for people to engage with on a daily basis, and so that token could, you know, be used.
I'm always on the fence about those kinds of mechanics, though. You know, on ETH, you know, I saw a couple like interesting projects. There was like a Street Fighter NFT project where you'd play a game and you'd fight other people's NFTs, but it actually ended up paradoxically like killing the community because you had to do too much stuff. And so is the solution like, if you're going to incorporate these mechanics, make sure they're fun, or is there like a level at which you're doing too much?
Yeah, I guess there's many ways. It depends really on like what you are going for. Definitely there's a way to ruin a community by people over gaming and getting tired of the game, and then, you know, the game's shit anyways and whatever. So you definitely don't want to create that, but there are cool ways that every single NFT community already uses. So they'll do like stake your NFT and then you earn points, and then with the points you unlock like a daily quiz, and then if you tweet on a daily basis you earn your points, and then in some instances like they do the actual token. I mean that used to be the mainstream meta, right? So all of these things are already happening or have already happened. I think with an integrated NFT and token liquidity, that's going to solve a lot of the mismatches in like, it will allow NFT collections to tap into DeFi liquidity, which I think will be at least an interesting experiment. And so I think, yeah, when it comes to doing a project, I mean, yeah, it really depends on what your goal is. If I was to do a project, I would actually do something non-token related and do just like a small supply, like weird niche community. That's like a type of project I would do next. Keep it chill.
keep it chill. I guess the next thing to talk about though is the new project, like the project you're doing now. Yes. Do you want to describe it? Tell us what it's about, how it came about actually, and what you kind of see for, like, what's your vision for this project?
Yeah, so it started like in the Thugbirdz days, this idea, and in fact it was like what I tried to get really off the ground back in the day after the project had launched. And the kind of a mainstream idea at the time was this like streetwear meta and like a fashion meta. So that intrigued me. There was especially this project on ETH called Artifact or Clonex.
Yeah.
And that to me was like, holy shit. And then I was like, yeah, how do you do this for Thugbirdz? We had made like we had a whole bunch of hoodies made and sampled a whole bunch of stuff, but never really took off. And then coincidentally, I met my co-founder, Steph, who a mutual friend connected us and said to me that Steph was like from the fashion world and he was looking at the NFT space and like wanted to do a project and thought it would be good to connect us because he knew I was looking at the fashion space. And this was coincidentally a guy I knew as well, like just not well, but knew him for like a whole bunch of years. And he's like a pure fashion guy. Like he's in high school, started a brand that went like pretty big and studied fashion at like a fashion school in Paris. Yeah, he was kind of in this weird position in like a very Web2 classic way where it's like impossible to get anyone excited about cool creative ideas. Like, you know, new streetwear brand in like the Web2 world is kind of like, no one really cares about that unless you're like super famous person starting it. So it's hard to gain funding if you're like a startup for a brand new streetwear brand. And from my perspective, I was like, you know, it's super easy to launch an NFT and create that community online, but there definitely is this push towards solidifying the brand with some real life aspect. And so we just kind of started talking about these ideas. I started checking like Steph out, and we made a whole bunch of like cool puffer jackets. And we were like really liking this idea of like somehow doing a fashion related thing. We had no idea what. And so time fast forwards, I see like pudgy penguins starting to like emerge, and I was like, holy shit, Luca Nets has unlocked the problem that not many NFT, in fact, pretty much none have unlocked, which is if you launch a token, even if you launch more NFTs or more tokens, if your revenue is primarily token derived, like you're a very vulnerable business, because at any time, like Binance blows up tomorrow, there goes your bull run for the next 6 months, like go home. And if you're not prepared for a situation like that, then yeah, things can get crazy. So
is that kind of your vision for the future then, is like this NFT was to push the fashion concept and sell, actual physical items?
Exactly. So we have the collections called silicons. They're these like humanoid little characters, and we designed the attributes to be like fashion that he's wearing. So it's full 3D modeled NFTs with like they wear clothes, and the clothes that they wear are all branded, and the brand is called Abstract, and that's like a physical brand that we've got samples for now. We're doing a shoot like this Friday, first shoot, and we got super sick ass packaging, and we're going to be dropping it soon. Super small supply, but super cool shit and high quality, and it's actually what the characters are wearing. And so along the same meta of Luca and pudgy penguins, where you have this awesome digital Web3 community, that's a great amplifier and a great powerful force in and of itself. But you can essentially use that community and the little bit of capital that you attract with it to grow that into a brand with presence, and eventually get products distributed, in the real world, and create this sustainable business model for the whole thing to work. Because then Luca can focus on growing, the plushie toy business, and if that goes, Hello Kitty level, he doesn't have to ever do a mint again, and can just literally pour value on the NFT community for forever. And so that's like the holy grail of NFTs. And so our spin on that was, given that we had this fashion idea coming all along, like let's do a fashion-based project where we build, along the artifact CloneX, a kid called Beast meta, and then also launch this like actual brand with a physical component. And we've got cool integrations between the digital community and the physical thing. It's just cool. I think in many ways, NFTs and fashion psychologically are very similar. Like NFTs are very identity based, at least the PFPs. It's like kind of your identity online, and what you choose to wear on a daily basis is your identity you portray to people around you. So I think for that reason, a lot of big fashion houses and stuff have experimented in the Web3 world a little bit. It's definitely not to make money. They make a shit ton of money anyways, but they see the power of this community and how this whole collector mindset and especially like token incentives, and how this center of liquidity is super powerful, and how the fashion world and the Web3 world will kind of be overlapping more and more over time. So yeah, that's kind of where we're positioned.
Are you guys looking at the digiphysical stuff at all? Are you like QR codes that link to a blockchain asset, or you track the fashion item itself, you can sort of track the provenance on chain? Are you guys doing anything with that? Do you think there's anything there?
Yeah, so for a long time, that was kind of a focus in the beginning phases. Our first idea was this concept of you can redeem like NFTs for physical stuff, and then potentially like trade the physical stuff as tokens amongst collectors, and then only once the end user like wants it, you send them the package or whatever. That idea, specifically Cupcake, we're tight with that team who do the NFC chips that are integrated to Solana. That idea is kind of it's still a bit clunky. Like, unless you are, it's not clunky. I can't say that, but it hasn't really like been rolled out in the fashion game like as successfully as or it hasn't really gotten any traction. Like the Cupcake things, they could do cool like proof of attendance things for events. That's a cool use case of those kind of chips. But for terms of like, collectible, having it embedded, that idea is kind of a bit clunky because you have the digital asset. Does that equal the physical asset? If you have the physical asset and you sell on secondary, like what's the incentive for anyone to buy that one? If you can somehow escrow the physical thing, you could, and then allow people to trade it back and forth. But there's so much complexity in that idea that I think to roll it out at scale would be tough. I think something like eBay, they built this like huge warehouse for trading cards, and that would be the perfect setup to then launch this like digital card trading infrastructure where you only have graded cards and they can be easily shipped in and out of eBay's existing infrastructure and stuff like that. But I mean, I think to start a company like that, like from scratch, would be super hard to actually pull off. But yeah, the Cupcake guys are still cooking, and I know they've got some more team members there now. So I think they're going to be pushing some cool stuff in that space. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Was there anything, any advice or anything else you want to say to the mid curves?
The mid curves, I mean, I guess the least mid curve thing you could do is go buy some Jito Sol, not financial advice, or some JTO. Yeah, check out Silicons.
You did not pay him for that plug. That was purely organic.
Yeah, that was organic.
I wear this hat every day. It's not a joke, bro.
So we should say that there's some background.
Best collectibles I've got.
You should get like some background. You and the Jito Labs CTO Zano are good friends. So this is you were a Jito adopter early, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yes.
You're a true Jito loyalist.
I know, dude. Even when Solana was $8, I was a Jito loyalist.
Yeah, I can just see. I know you and Zano were just in the club, like going hard, talking.
That's a misconception, dude.
Okay.
We don't go too crazy.
Not too crazy. Well, I mean, Zano's a great DJ, so like going to listen to Zano's music is pretty fun. Best DJ. I mean, he is the Solana resident DJ at this point. So hopefully, man, I thank you for coming on. Hopefully we'll get to hang out maybe at Breakpoint this year, maybe film some stuff together, do some content. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you guys so much. This was really fun and great to meet you. Is it Blockanalia?
Nailed it.
Blockanalia.
Really appreciate the time.
Yeah. Thanks, much for having me.